Hey class, welcome back. Week 2 going on today. We're going to be talking about assignment 2, camera settings. What's that button for? This is going to be a longer video, and I'm going to put timestamps on the video uploaded to YouTube. Feel free to go through the timestamps if you want to jump ahead. And remember, you can always pause the video, go look something up, and come back to it, okay? All right, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, before we begin, I want to say one thing. All camera make and models are going to be different in how they explain how to do things, or the ergonomics, the functionality, they're going to be different. My Nikon D3200, which is an entry-level camera, is even different than my Nikon D810, my more advanced camera. So Canons, Nikons, Sonys, Pentax, whatever. They're all different in how the way that they explain or their settings on how to do certain things. The functionality is pretty much the same. When we talk about light quality or picture control or metering, those are all universal things. It's just a matter of finding how to get there and how to change that, which for you, I suggest using a pen and paper again, and feel free to pause the video. If you hear a terminology or something you don't understand, or you can't find how to change that setting, pause the video, go look it up, and then come back. I'm going to start from the very beginning on how to hold a camera. I use my left hand underneath the camera. It supports the weight, my elbow tucked into my body. It's not always going to be that way. Sometimes I move it out, but for the most part, my left hand supports the weight of the camera. My right hand comes over and I'm able to take a photograph. The left hand has a little bit more jobs though. It's multi-functioning. It also is going to use your focus ring. It's going to adjust your focus if you are on manual focus. And if you have a zoom lens, something like an 18 to 55 or a 70 to 200, your left hand will also zoom out or zoom in, depending on what type of a shot you want to get. So the left hand has multi-functions, and get used to holding your camera in your left hand and making those adjustments, changing your focus, changing your zoom length, and then taking photographs with the right hand. Now, before we dive into the inside of the camera, I want to talk about some external components. On the back of your camera, this is called your viewfinder. You have a small dial next to your viewfinder somewhere that has a plus and a minus on it. This is called your diopter. This is a setting for your own specific eyes. Go and find out how to change your diopter. But basically, when you look through your viewfinder, you're going to notice your focus lines. To set the camera up so that when you look through the viewfinder, the optics are set for your eyes. Like if you wear glasses, your diopter is going to be different than somebody who does not wear eyeglasses. So you want to aim your camera at like a white wall or a blank wall, something without anything on it. You want to look through the viewfinder, okay? And you want to, don't look at the wall, but you want to look at those focus lines, the focus squares or their little dots, or there might be, as you look through, you want to change your diopter. You're going to notice that the focus lines go blurry or they get really sharp. You want to change your diopter so that those focus lines are really sharp, okay? That way that when you look through your viewfinder, the camera is set to your eyes. On the lens, if you have the option, you have an M or an A on the side of your lens. On mine right here, it says M for manual or MA. That means my lens will either manually focus, meaning I have to manually make the image sharp, or A for autofocus. That means my camera will autofocus on whatever I'm trying to take a photograph of. Now, I'm going to give you guys a pro tip. It's a little bit more advanced. Some of your cameras might not be able to do this, but you're going to have to figure that out for yourself. Go online, do a Google search, type in your make and model, and say, turn on back button autofocus. Typically, when you press down halfway on your shutter button, when you press halfway down, when you're on autofocus, your camera will autofocus when you press halfway down. and then you'll have to continue to press to get the photograph. With back button autofocus, this is turned off, the halfway down on the index on your shutter release. So when you press your thumb, either on like an FN button or an AEL button or a button on the back of your camera, when you press down with back button autofocus, your thumb will autofocus, and all you have to do on your index finger on the shutter is just press down and it will take the photograph. The convenient thing about that is that sometimes when you look through your viewfinder, your autofocus rings, wherever you're focusing on, is not in line with what you actually want to take a photograph of. So when I take a photograph of a portrait, I will move my camera so that my focus ring is aimed right on their eye, because when you take portraits, the eye wants to be in focus. So I'm going to move my camera at an angle so that my focus ring is on their eye. I'm going to back button autofocus on them. Then I can release the back button autofocus, and then I'm going to re-angle or reposition my camera so that I have a proper headshot or whatever I'm doing. And then when I press the shutter release button, all I'm going to do is take that photograph, so that if I ever press down, normally if I was to press the shutter release button, my camera would try to autofocus again. But with back button autofocus, that removes that problem. So all I have to do is press the back button autofocus, find the location of what I want to focus on, turn my camera back to a position, and then take the photograph. That's a little pro tip. You're going to have to mess with it and get familiar with it and do some practicing to fully get all the possibilities out of that, okay? There's one other thing I want to show you. This happens a lot with new photographers. You're going to see it a lot with tourists. You ever see the tourist that's walking around with their camera like this, and it's got the little flash up here, and they're walking around, they got their flash, and they're taking all these photographs? You need to find out for your make and model how to turn that off. That is an absolute beginner, newbie, somebody who does not know what they're doing with the camera. And we are all going to know what to do with our cameras. So go and figure out. You're going to have to research for your make and model something like how to disable pop-up flash on shutter release. Okay, something like that. Make sure that that is disabled. On the back of your camera, you've got an LCD screen. When you take a photograph, and this is going to be a terrible photograph because that photograph is going to show up on the LCD screen, okay? This has a timer to it. If you notice that it just went off, if you want that timer to last longer, go in and figure out how to keep the replay timer on longer so that you can review the image longer. I see a lot of new people take a photograph and then the image will pop up for 1 or 2 seconds and then go away. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the internal settings of your camera. On the back of your camera, you're going to have a menu button. Okay, go ahead and press the menu button and dive in. I'm going to go through all of the terminology. It's very, some of it is universal. Some of it you might have to do a Google search and figure out how to change this, but grab a pen, pause the video, go look it up, whatever you want to do. The very first aspect of this assignment, part of this assignment, is you are going to write down, you're going to create a list, okay? At the very top of that list, you're going to put your name, and you're going to put, below that, you're going to put your camera make. Mine is a Nikon. You're going to put your camera model. Mine is a D810. If you've got a Canon T3i Rebel, you're going to put that. And then you're going to put below that, you could put 1, 2, 3, or you can make it a bullet point, however you want to do it. You're going to put how you changed all of these settings. Just very briefly, doesn't have to be extraneous, but in your menu, you went to the shooting menu, it's under setup, it's under whatever, however you did that. Under the menu, we're going to be looking for some things. I'm not going to go over absolutely every setting on your camera because we don't need to adjust every single setting, and we don't need to know what every single setting of your camera does. I'm just going to set you up with some very basic industry standard types of settings for new photographers, okay? The first one is image quality. Pros shoot in RAW. Image quality is RAW. For this class, we're going to be shooting in JPEG. Down the road, if you feel comfortable and you want to switch over to RAW, go ahead and shoot in RAW. I'm not going to teach what RAW is or the advantages. As a newer photographer, we want to learn this camera. We want to learn how to take a proper exposure. We want to learn about light. There's a lot to cover in beginning photography. So for image quality, we want to set it to JPEG. JPEG large, if that's possible. If you don't see JPEG, you might just have a little square with an L for the setting. And if you can't find any of those, Google search. We're looking for white balance. We want to put our white balance on auto. We're looking for picture control, something like picture control. And inside of picture control, we're looking for words like standard, vivid, portrait, monochrome, or landscape. You might have to go and do a Google search, and that will tell you how to get into there. Remember, write all of those things down. For our class, vivid, portrait, landscape, those are all pretty good. We will be using the monochrome when we get to the decisive moment assignment. For color space, we want to use Adobe RGB. You might have the option for sRGB, like a small little S, and then an uppercase RGB. If that's the only option you have, go ahead and choose that. If you have the option for Adobe RGB, you want to choose that one. You want active D-lighting on. What active D-lighting does is it helps in high contrast situations. If you decide to have autofocus turned on, if you have the option for it, turn on something that is called single servo autofocus. You just want the one square. When you look through your viewfinder, you just want to be able to see one square or one circle or one dot inside of it. If you don't have that, that's fine. You can do like 3 or point or 5 point, 11 point. But for the most part, single servo, a single dot focused on that one point for autofocus. In conjunction with the back button autofocus, that will allow you to take some really professional photographs and get used to how pros take their photographs, okay? There is another setting that you're going to have to look up for your camera, is how to change the metering mode. There are a few different types of metering, and I will get into them down the road when we talk about exposure. There's matrix, there's evaluative, there's center weighted metering, and there's spot metering. For the purposes of this class, I'm just going to go ahead and have you guys put it on evaluative or matrix. Either one of those metering modes will work just fine, okay? When we talk about metering, we're talking about your camera trying to decide if you're going to take a proper exposure or not. But for now, those are the basic settings that I would like you guys to go ahead and set up. You've got a week to do it before you turn in that assignment. Turn it in as a JPEG, please. If you do Google Word, Google Docs, or Microsoft Word, whatever, do it on there, but then save it as a PDF and then upload a PDF to the assignment page. We will be looking at these and we will be commenting. This is a great opportunity for you guys. If you need help to upload and somebody else could say, hey, I know where to find that. You got to go into here, go into this setting, and you guys can help each other out. All right, that is assignment 2, camera settings. Next week, we'll be talking about A3 shutter speed motion. Okay, we're going to be talking about getting a proper exposure. All right, you guys, have a good week. Get out there, start practicing. Email me with any thoughts, concerns, questions, comments. Okay, have a good week. I'll see you in a week.